Today we're going to talk about Steve Mnuchin and Chris Wallace. So Steve Mnuchin earlier today was on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace here a few hours ago. And I watched this interview, and I got to tell you that the interview itself, depending on your perspective, it's either really good or really bad. But one thing is for certain. What is for certain is that the fundamentals for cryptocurrency are strong. So we're going to play this interview, and I'm going to interrupt after they talk and just kind of give you my thoughts and my feedback. Now listen, if you believe in cryptocurrency, if you're fascinated by cryptocurrency and you don't trust Steve Mnuchin, then by all means subscribe to this channel, because I don't trust this guy. And if you don't know who he is, then I will do an entire video on him at some point on his background and who he is. All you got to do is look at his background. And you would quickly realize this guy's, I don't think his ideas are, and who he is at his character is great for overall American policy. That's just my personal opinion. Take it for what you will. But if you think you agree with that, and you think cryptocurrency is the way of the future, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, and let's get started. All right, so here we go.
Secretary Steve Mnuchin, who's a member of the President's Coronavirus Task Force. Mr. Secretary, President Trump talked openly yesterday about a possible quarantine of the New York State area. Why did he first consider it, and why in the end did he decide not to go ahead with it?
Well, Chris, it's great to be back with you. The president did very seriously consider it. The task force met yesterday with the vice president. It was the unanimous decision of the recommendation of the task force to go forward with the advisory. The vice president, myself, Mark Meadows, and others met with the president yesterday afternoon, and he decided to go forward with the recommendation.
What was it that made him think a quarantine might be necessary, and again, why did he decide not to do it?
Chris, I think the president wanted to consider all the options. He was obviously concerned what was going on with New York. He spoke to the task force, he spoke to the governors, and he was comfortable that people would take this advisory very seriously and would not travel.
That's a joke. Ain't nobody taking this advisory serious, or at least not enough people are taking it serious. I don't know about you and your family, but I encourage you to be careful, be safe out there. There's a lot of things we don't know about this virus, but here's the thing. The president is walking a fine line. And, you know, politics aside, if you have distrust for politics in general, then you and I are probably along the same line. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. At the end of the day, yeah, I'm not saying they're all bad, but they're not all good. Let's just put it that way. I don't care if you're Barack Obama, George Bush Jr., or Donald Trump. To be in the position that Trump finds himself in right now, it has got to be a challenging position, because the reality is we don't know what this virus is all about. But I'm beginning to watch, and I'm beginning to think that we're going to see the sentiment in this country change. I mean, he's talking about, the president is trying to decide between quarantine, do we slow the virus, and then how bad is that going to hurt the economy overall? And and as a president, you have to govern from a place of the greatest good, which means that no matter what he does, this is going to be horrible for people. I mean, either people are going to lose their job, the economy's going to suck, people can lose their retirements, or people are going to be sick. But I actually, you know, the president knows that whatever he decides, ultimately, it's going to rest on his shoulders. Whatever happens is bad, good or bad, it ends up on his shoulders. People like the Steve Mnuchin, you know, they're able to lobby the president and advise the president for whatever they want, their own personal ideas, their bias, their agendas. And if you research Steve Mnuchin, I mean, he's just not an amazing person in general. He's definitely not pro-cryptocurrency, at least not pro-cryptocurrency from the standpoint of a decentralized blockchain. He wants a fully centralized blockchain for the U.S. government. But let's keep going right now. He just talking about, you know, this guy just looks like a talking head right now. But he's here. He wants to talk about the economic bailout package. That's what he wants to talk about. But Chris Wallace kind of presses him here for a moment. But let's keep going for now.
The Coronavirus Task Force, of which you're a member, is meeting this weekend to come up with new guidelines after the 15 days how to stop the spread of the virus guidelines end tomorrow. Here's what the president said this week about what he'd like to see.
I would love to have the country opened up and just raring to go by Easter.
As Treasury Secretary, do you think that's realistic, to open up parts of the country, to open up parts of the economy as soon as 2 weeks from today, which will be Easter?
Chris, I'm going to leave that decision to the medical professionals and the president. My full-time focus right now is we couldn't be more pleased that the Senate and House reacted very quickly, signed an enormous package to support U.S. workers and the U.S. economy. The president signed it into law, and my full-time focus is delivering on that. And let me just say, the SBA is working very closely with the Treasury. We expect to have a program up on Friday that will be up and running, that will cover half of the private workforce. I encourage all small businesses to take out these loans, because if you go and hire back your workers for 8 weeks, you will have a forgivable loan, and the government will pay for that.
Okay, so notice his pivot. Chris Wallace asked him an economic question. What did he feel like? Did he think this was ultimately good for the economy? He pivoted and said, I'll leave that to the medical professionals. No, dimwit. He didn't ask you a medical question. He said, do you think it's good for the economy? Here's what he says. He dodges the question about getting the economy reopened, and he pivots. Catch this now. Catch this. You've always got to watch what happens. Don't listen to what they say. Watch what happens. He pivots and says, stimulus, stimulus, stimulus. Take the free money, take the free money, take the free money. Now, you've got to ask yourself, why? Is this guy some noble angel that just wants to do everything he can? Has he dedicated his entire life to public service or charitable works to help the greatest good? Is that really who he is? Listen, I've got something for you. I'm going to give you my advice towards the end of this, and I'm going to basically pull it from somebody else who I love his philosophies, and I'll talk to you about who he is towards the end of the video. But always watch what they do. Don't just listen to what they say. And I'm not saying it's all bad in every case. I'm not trying to paint everything as black and white. I'm just saying, did you notice how he was asked an economic question, he pivoted, he tried to put it off on the medical professionals, and then he went back to the part of the economic question that he wants, which is painting this stimulus into a great light. And if you watch my previous video, the stimulus is $2 trillion. The American country, the American government, since its inception, think about this, has only gone into debt to $23 trillion. And now they're pushing through a stimulus bill where only a fraction of it goes to the everyday worker, the wage earner. Only a small fraction goes there. But in one stroke of a pen, one bill basically, one law, they're essentially going to increase the entire government debt since the inception of the country, over 200 years that has taken us to get into $23 trillion in debt. They're going to increase it by almost 10% with just one law. Now, what is the economic impact of that? If you don't know, you need to make sure you go watch the video Money as Debt, and I'll put it up here because you definitely should be able to go watch that. And I'll try to put it in the description as well. All right, let's keep going. Notice that pivot though. That's important. And it's important for you to notice these things because you nor I can make any major change to the government. But it's important for us to understand what games or what rules they're playing by in order to be able to make the best decisions for ourselves. And I'm going to talk about what some of those decisions should be towards the end of the video. So let's keep going.
Again, it is very important for us that workers are protected, and this is a major part of the package.
Is it really workers? Is he really worried about the workers? And if he was worried about the workers, why didn't he answer the freaking question that he was asked? Let's see if what Chris Wallace does here.
Mr. Secretary, I'm going to get to that package in a moment, but I want to press on this issue of perhaps changing the guidelines, because that not only has a lot of health implications, it also has a lot of economic implications. There's been a lot of pushback from public.
Notice what he did? Hey, yeah, of course it's health. That's what the medical professionals are for. But I'm talking about economics, bozo. That's what Chris Wallace basically said. That's my version.
Health experts about the idea of reopening parts of the country where there's a lower incidence of the virus, opening them up perhaps within 2 weeks. Our very next guest, Dr. Tom Inglesby, head of the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, says this disease will not respect state borders and city borders and will move around this country just like it's moved around the world. So the question is, if the virus spread from China to Italy, can't it spread from Chicago to Iowa? And if we were to reopen parts of the country too soon, wouldn't that be the worst thing for the economy if we see the virus spreading into more areas?
Chris, I can assure you the president's #1 objective is the health of the American public and protecting the American public. And we're going to do everything to support the economy. The task force will be reviewing it. It'll be discussing it with the president. There hasn't been any recommendation made yet. So again, let me just emphasize, the president wants to make sure that we kill this virus, and we do it quickly. And the medical professionals are working on that. And while we do that, we have now a gigantic economic program to support American workers and American business.
Okay, again, notice the pivot, right? He basically was asked a direct question. Hey, you, Steve Mnuchin, we understand there's a medical aspect, but how do you feel about these medical decisions and these public policy decisions on the economy? This is like, the man in government whose job is kind of to in theory, sort of lead where the where the economy is going, lead monetary policy, essentially. And so he's asking him an economic question about monetary policy or the policy of money in this country. And of course he pivots, right? And he doesn't answer directly his opinion. And then he goes back to the stimulus package. This guy's agenda up here, if you haven't noticed yet, is to try to paint the stimulus package in such a way that the American public wants it. Yes, give it to me. Yes, help me. Yes, pay me $2,000 or $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever. Pay my family. Give me money. And let me feel good about it because you're telling me that I deserve it, because I need it, because I'm hurt. And granted, people are hurt. I'm not downplaying that. I'm just saying, watch the agenda that's taking place.
Yeah, let's get to that. You were the key administration figure negotiating that $2 trillion.
This was the key person who wanted a $2 trillion bailout. Who is Steve Mnuchin? Who is he? Stay tuned. Subscribe to this video because I think I'm going to, let me know down in the comments if you want me to do a video. Hit the subscribe button, but let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video talking about Steve Mnuchin, who he is, his past, and everything else. But let's keep going. And by the way, what you're going to see here are strong fundamentals why a decentralized, I keep saying third party, a decentralized cryptocurrency that is uninflatable, where you can't create more out of thin air, such as Bitcoin, why that ultimately may end up being our fundamental currency. And I don't think it's going to be a currency. It will end up being a currency by default. They're going to run out of options. But this is part of the fundamentals that make this. This is all part of the same fundamentals that I discussed. And some of this I've already discussed. If you have been a long-time subscriber, you've heard me discuss this probably a year ago on my Bitcoin to $1 million video playlist. And I'll put that above. Why I believe Bitcoin's going to $1 million. I mean, these are the fundamentals. You're watching them unfold in real time right before your eyes. Right before your eyes. If you don't understand exactly what Bitcoin is and why Satoshi created it, now is the time for you to understand that and research it, because this right here is exactly part of the reason why Satoshi created Bitcoin. When you can get the American public to agree to give me, to go put the entire government in debt by almost 10% so I can get $2,000. When you put it in that perspective, it's crazy. But of course, they don't put it in that perspective. And they don't discuss the danger on monetary policy and how it can hurt the average person. They don't discuss that crap. Instead, they market it to you through interviews like this, because that's all this is. This is nothing more but marketing. You're so worried about some YouTuber going to direct you to be a referral and to buy into some product that, is a sponsorship ad. Well, they need to put right up here, sponsorship for government debt and putting, citizens in debt. That's what they need to be putting right here. Sponsorship of government bailout bills, which do horrible things for citizens in the long run. That's what they need to put right up here, right below. They need to have their own disclaimer, but they don't. But this is nothing more than marketing. Let's keep going.
Some call it relief bill, some call it a stimulus bill. One part of that is $500 billion, $500 billion to help dealing with various big corporations. How much discretion do you and the president have in deciding who to give that $500 billion to, which corporations, and under what terms?
Chris, there's two parts to this program. There's approximately $50 billion that we can make direct Treasury loans that are subject to the president and my approval. Those are specifically designed for the airline business and for the cargo business, which are national security concerns, and also give us flexibility if there are other national security companies. And let me be clear, taxpayers will be fully compensated for those loans. The other part of the
Be minus 20.
I have to approve them is Treasury Secretary, the president. So these are very important programs. We think they can provide about $4 trillion of liquidity to the American economy. Again, we expect we will get paid back on these loans. These are temporary support.
Okay, but they don't ever say how, by the way, how they're getting paid back. But that's just one facet. Let's keep going.
For the American economy, that's very, very, very critical. And we've already rolled out many of these already.
But, Mr. Secretary, one of the big sticking points when you were negotiating with Democrats in the Senate is they wanted an inspector general to oversee the big loans, the big grants to big corporations. And just 2 hours after the president signed the $2 trillion bill, he put out a signing statement saying that he will only allow that inspector general to report to Congress under, quote, presidential supervision. So didn't that basically violate the deal you made with the Democrats in the Senate?
I don't think that's the case, Chris. There's constitutional issues. Again, we're going to have full transparency. The way this works is we have full transparency in reporting what we're doing to the American public. We also have a bipartisan oversight committee that will review our actions. We are fully comfortable that whatever we do, we want full transparency, and we're very careful in what we're doing about supporting American workers and the American economy.
So direct.
By the way, I just want to, again, notice the wording. He talks about big businesses. He keeps saying American workers and the American economy. Okay, and I don't have a problem with big businesses. I don't have a problem at all. I do have problems when government gets in bed with helping big businesses because that creates all sorts of issues. We are in an unprecedented times right now, and there is not a good way out of this. But going in debt an additional $2 trillion there's no way that seems like the right move, but it's okay. I mean, I'm so glad that I'm in cryptocurrency because fundamentally it's going to be great for cryptocurrency in the long run. It's just we as citizens have to go through the pain. We will suffer the pain of these monetary policies, no questions about it in the process. The more crypto you have, ideally, fundamentally, my thought is the better off you're going to be. That's my thought. Now, that's not investment advice. You make your own decision. And I'm going to talk to you about what I'm doing towards the end of this video. But, I mean, there's just no way. I mean, this just is not good. The only way we get away with this is because we have the world's reserve currency with the US dollar. It's very important that you understand what that is. If not, you should probably look it up. But that's the only way we can get away with carrying this much debt. No other country on the planet can carry as much debt as America can cover. But it's only because we have the world reserve currency. We lose that world reserve status, yeah, game changer.
Directly, will the inspector general that was provided for in this bill be allowed to testify and report to Congress?
Chris, I'm going to leave that to the lawyers, okay, and to Congress to figure out. My full-time objective right now is to make sure this administration does everything we can to get this money into the economy quickly. That's a
Again, did you notice that dodge, right? I mean, he said full transparency, but why not have an inspector general or someone, overseeing, reporting to Congress? Why not? I mean, here's the challenge. With this big $2 trillion, it's so much money. Mark my words. Subscribe to this channel, bookmark, save this to your playlist, because here's what's going to happen. You can come back here and in less than a year from now, we're going to hear story after story after story of how businesses and some individuals scammed a government. They're $2 trillion. They're trying to do so much so fast. Government never has the ability to give itself good oversight. Never. Part of the problem with socialism, part of the problem with, like Bernie Sanders and anyone who wants a lot of government programs, is the idea is to create these government programs to create an environment that is far more fair. But there's a reason that most socialized countries carry a tremendous amount of corruption. Part of that is because there's no checks and balances to monitor who is doling out the goodies. Who is this for? Who deserves this? This business deserves it, but this business doesn't. This business got it for this reason. This business got it for this reason. Here's a good example. They're doing lockdowns right now, right? In a lot of states and a lot of cities, they're doing lockdowns, except for essential businesses. The problem is no one can determine exactly what is essential business. I mean, I've heard of dentist offices getting approval to stay open because they're medical, so they're essential businesses. I know someone who manufactures mobile homes and they got a waiver. Why? Because they're an essential business because they manufacture homes. But I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, but unless you're currently actively building a house for somebody that might need one, same thing for construction companies, right? Unless you are, building a house that somebody's got to move in, is that truly essential for the next 2 to 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks? And here's the other question people aren't asking. What happens after the stimulus bill? What happens in another 4 weeks? What happens in another 8 weeks? I mean, if this virus is what it's projecting to be, if this is the case, as, is being reported by mainstream media, then, and I don't know if it is, by the way, I always believe that you expect the worst and you prepare for the best. So I'm sorry, you expect the best and you prepare for the worst. So, me and my family, we're protecting ourselves. We're taking every precaution we can as if this is going to be, the Spanish flu. But as I start looking and doing my own research and digging, I don't even know that the government truly knows what's going on here. However, what are they going to do if this continues on for another 8 weeks or 12 weeks? What exactly is going to happen? Are they going to do another stimulus? Is that one going to be $2 trillion? Is that one going to be $4 trillion? If it is, again, that's great fundamentals for cryptocurrency. But ladies and gentlemen, you got to watch what's taking place here, and you need to expect the best but prepare for the worst. That includes in your investing. And I'll talk to you about what I'm doing here in a minute.
Combination of small business loans that will be available this week. And let me just be clear, this is not just normal SBA lenders. Any FDIC bank, any credit union, any fintech lender will be authorized to make these loans subject to certain approvals. We'll also have direct deposit into people's accounts within 3 weeks, so they have checks. These are bridge checks. We have enhanced unemployment insurance that we're working with the states. This is all about the president's determination to support the U.S. economy.
Finally, Mr. Secretary, 3.3 million people apply.
Okay, hang on a minute. Back up. So notice all that. So let me just give you a couple of examples where abuse, they're saying that this is up to the banks. I saw another interview. I don't remember if it was on Chris Wallace or another show. I saw another interview where they said, hey, we really want the local banks to do this because they know these businesses. Okay, think about this for a minute. Let's just say you run a local bank and one of your biggest customers may be a big contractor in your town. They're one of the biggest customers. They build a lot of homes, they take out a lot of loans, etc. They pay them off, of course. They keep money moving through in large quantities in your banking system. So this guy comes in, he needs a loan. And where's the checks and balances to make certain that you as the banker are like, you know what, I'm going to keep this guy happy. A little bit of what he's asking for, what we're approving him for, there's a bit of a gray area here. We don't have any guidelines. What are the odds that you're going to favor your customer because you don't want to lose your customer? And look, let's face it, you're not lending out your bank's revenue. You're not lending out your bank's money. This just reeks of the American taxpayers' money potentially being abused, and not to mention increasing our debt by almost 10%. Craziness. All right, let's keep going. So he's talking about over 3 million people have applied for unemployment.
Applied for unemployment benefits this week. That is 4 times the previous highest record since 1967 when these records were kept. Former head of the CBO says that we're going to see an unemployment rate in the next few months of 20%. Your former company, Goldman Sachs, is projecting that GDP in the second quarter, instead of being up 2% or 3%, is going to be minus 24%. Is that what you're seeing at the Treasury Department? 20% unemployment, a GDP shrinking from year over year by a quarter?
Chris, it's hard to predict these numbers because we've never had anything like this where we've shut down the U.S. economy for medical reasons.
Just point out that he's dodging that question as well. Of course, he knows as well as anyone else what the potential projections are, but let's keep going.
The economy was in very, very good health, and we shut it down. And let me just say, we're very sympathetic to the people who don't have jobs, and that's why the president was very clear that he wanted me to work with Congress on a bipartisan basis quickly to support those people. So I hope, number one, businesses rehire, small businesses rehire those people now that they'll have the money. Number two, people will have enhanced unemployment insurance. And number three, people will have direct deposit money in their accounts to provide liquidity. And we want to get people back to work as quickly as we can, subject to the medical conditions.
Understood, but briefly, and I've got about 30 seconds left. You're saying, you seem to be saying that 20% unemployment and GDP minus a quarter, 24%, is not impossible. It may not last long, but we may see those numbers. We may have to live with that.
Chris, I don't know what the numbers are going to be this quarter. What I do think is we are going to kill this virus. We are going to reopen this economy. And in the third quarter of this year, you're going to see this economy bounce back with very large GDP numbers and low unemployment back to where we were beforehand. So the president is determined that we protect people and reopen the economy when it's the right time.
Secretary Mnuchin, thank you.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to make the prediction here. I would love to see the economy bounce back. I think it's good overall, and I think it's good for people. I would love to see the economy bounce back, for sure. However, I'm prepared whether it does or doesn't, and I encourage you to be prepared as well. Don't be fearful. And if you carry a tremendous amount of debt right now, then you're in a tight spot. But if you're an American and the government's going to give you $3,000 or $5,000 or whatever they can give you for your family, $1,000 for an individual, whatever. If you're in a position where you have a business and you're gonna get some sort of money for some reason, I encourage you in the short term to have cash on hand, because they're talking about over the next 8 months. The next 8 weeks. Then what? This is going to get you through 8 weeks, and then what? There's no guarantee that the government's going to come through for you again. And I'll be very honest with you, I don't know if they're coming through for us now or not. Like, I get why a lot of people want this money. I get the concerns. I get the fears. I fully understand it. Let me just tell you this. You've got to expect the best, prepare for the worst. And here's where I'm preparing. I have minimized any debt obligations. I have practically no debt, by the way, but I've minimized and I've made some moves to pay down a little bit that I had. Or pay it off, essentially. I'll have it, I think I'll be, in less than a month, I'll have all my debt paid off, I believe. If I have anything left, it's going to be less than $10,000. But because I don't know what the future holds, and I don't want to be holding that debt, that's the bottom line. But at the same time, any cash that you get, you may need those cash reserves. You might not be guaranteed to have a job. Now, I recommend absolutely for myself and my family that we're buying cryptocurrency. And the problem with it is the price is wild. I mean, the price is all over the board. The price is all over the board. So right now we're at 5,924. We've been up to 6,400. Do you trade it? Do you try to buy the dip? I don't know. For me personally, it's all about earning passive cryptocurrency. I have this entire newsletter, Crypto Passive Profits newsletter. It's all about create 5 streams of crypto income for free. And I'm actually working on number 6 now, but create 5 streams right now. Start earning with your very first email. Starting with your very first email, you can start earning passive cryptocurrency. Because here's the thing, when you're earning it passively, you don't worry about the prices going up or the prices going down. You're just earning it literally 24 hours a day, 365 if you want. Daily emails that teach you how to build a passive profits empire, a 3-phase plan to allow you to earn in crypto and US dollars, free invitation to our invite-only course. And this course is available by invitation only. However, you can subscribe to the Crypto Passive Profits newsletter down in the description. But ladies and gentlemen, this isn't the time to panic. This is the time to prepare. I mean, the reason, if you're not in cryptocurrency, you need to go and start learning about cryptocurrency now. You need to understand why Bitcoin is so important. I'll put a video, I have a video on my channel where I talk about 3 of the best tutorials on what is Bitcoin and why is Bitcoin so important. If you've watched the video Money as Debt, and you understand, and you go watch that video on the 3 best Bitcoin tutorials and then go watch those tutorials, you're going to start understanding why the fundamentals are looking incredibly strong for cryptocurrency. Steve Mnuchin has an interesting past, and his past is not in social service, that's for sure, or on public service, social service either. I mean, so ultimately Steve Mnuchin's looking out for himself, and he's looking out for his Wall Street buddies. And I don't have a problem. Let me make this very clear. I don't have a problem with the man being rich. I have a problem with him getting there, screwing other people over. And not every rich man became rich by screwing people over. If you become wealthy because you're of a true, fair, and honest capitalistic system where you help other people by providing value, Henry Ford should have been rich. He created the greatest invention since the wheel. He put 4 of them on a carriage and called it a car. He changed our lives. Bill Gates arguably should have been rich. He transformed computing. Steve Jobs arguably should have been rich. For that matter, Sam Walton of Walmart arguably should have been rich. Now, when all of those businesses got big enough that they were able to manipulate the government, and that's when I have a problem with it. That's when I have a problem with it. So, Steve Mnuchin, pay attention to what's going on. I just showed you a couple examples of how he dodged questions and how he didn't answer things forthright. Watch that and always think critically about what you're watching. Don't ever take it at face value. Here's what I tell my kids. Anytime you're watching TV, anytime you're watching a movie, it's important to understand that there are people, even if it's not a commercial, there are things in that movie that's designed to shape your thought process and to shape your thought pattern. The question you have to ask yourselves is, what are they trying to shape you to think and why? And I'm not saying that that's not like what you're thinking about constantly all the time. But when you get tuned into this stuff and you watch stuff, like I saw Steve Mnuchin, I rewatched this just now, obviously, and I caught a couple more times that he dodged, especially on the end, kind of dodged the question. But that very first question that he dodged in the beginning, it was so obvious. And the question is, why did he just dodge that? Like, why is he trying to sell this $2 trillion package, $2 trillion stimulus bill? And I think it's because ultimately this bill is going to be far better for the biggest businesses. And by the way, those businesses are employers. Don't think that I'm not anti-big business. You need to understand that. I'm anti-corruption. And Bitcoin helps prevent corruption. And I think this $2 trillion bill, not only is it bad monetary policy, not only is it going to ultimately create inflation, there's no way that it can't. I actually believe that we're going to see a bigger bill coming down the road, maybe even $4 trillion within the next 90 days. I actually believe that our $23 trillion debt right now as it stands, you can save this video and you can come back here. I'm going to predict now that within 4 years, maybe less, we'll be at $40 trillion of debt here in the U.S. I fully believe that. You think about what that does. That makes a U.S. dollar worth so much less than what it's worth today. But your Bitcoin will probably be going way up in value because the U.S. dollar is not worth so much. So when you're earning Bitcoin, listen, if you're dollar cost averaging or you're earning these passive streams of income like I talk about, look, it's small amounts. You're not going to get rich. There's nobody who's going to pay you. You're not going to start earning crypto for free and make like $100 in a month for free. It's not going to happen. You're going to make a few dollars here and there for doing stuff that you already do that's super simple, but it's totally free. Now, here's the thing. Years from now, you make $5 in cryptocurrency, or maybe you dollar cost average. You dollar cost average it for $5 a week. Maybe $50 a week or $500 a week, depending on what your life circumstances are. But, at that $5 a week, you're like, what does that count for, crypto wealth? That's not a whole lot. It's not a whole lot, but it might be a lot in the future. Dollar cost average, the great thing about doing dollar cost averaging or doing passive crypto earnings, it's all about earning cryptocurrency and stacking it up slowly over time, because the fundamentals could not be more clear today than they've ever been in the past. Satoshi, he could not have envisioned how quickly we've gotten to where we're at, or maybe he could. That's why he had the foresight to create Bitcoin. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Please hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and if you want to learn how to earn multiple streams of passive crypto, go down to the comments, subscribe to the Crypto Passive Profits newsletter. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, everyone.